John doesn't subscribe.
Hello everybody, welcome to my ranking of every species in Jurassic Evolution 2. This is going to be a very long video, so let's move through this. We have 133 designs to rank because we're including most of the variants in the game, especially the ones that have individual skins. Back over 6 years ago when Evolution 1 came out, we had, I think, 37 species at launch, and now the number has increased so much, which is just absolutely fabulous. Ranking this, I realized there were a whole lot more species that I thought I didn't like were in C tier. I think that's just because I don't think about the species I don't like very much because we have such a large selection. Overall, I do like the designs of this game, which is why I'm going to be starting with my number 1 instead of 133 and moving up, because I don't want to talk about the things I don't like first. Just a little disclaimer before we start the ranking. This is my opinion of how much I like them, not necessarily how good I think the designs are objectively. This is how much I like them. This has been a highly requested video. It's taken a very, very long time to make this video, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd watch it. Tell me your opinions down below of what you think of certain species. There's a lot of unpopular opinions in here, and I'm sure a lot of things we can agree on, because if you're here, you probably like this game also. So it's a long one. Now let's go ahead and jump into this ranking. Starting off with number 1, one of those unpopular opinions is Allosaurus. Aside from Allosaurus being one of my favorite designs, ever since we first saw this design in Jurassic World Evolution, it's become kind of the canonical Allosaurus in my brain. I think it's overall very neat design. It's fairly accurate in its overall basicness, and it has some very cool design flair that I think any small inaccuracies can be sacrificed for this case. It has great skins in this game, and also in the first game, I think it had decent skins from my memory. This is also a Frontier model, so it doesn't suffer from a lot of the Jurassic World design aesthetics, even though it appears in the Jurassic World movies. This was Frontier's design, not the version from Battle of Big Rock and Dominion. So, I would have more to say, but we need to move through this ranking quite quickly, so going on to the number 2 spot. In second place in this ranking is one that a lot of people really like, and I agree with them. This is the Utahraptor, which was added in the Cretaceous Predator pack quite recently to Evolution 2. This is an amazing Utahraptor design. All of its skins are fabulous, some of them inspired by birds of prey. It has amazing behavior, it's very paleo accurate, and it makes like the pitch down Velociraptor sounds from Jurassic Park. It's just an amazing addition to the game. I use it in pretty much all of my parks now, which to be fair isn't very many since that species came out, but I will definitely continue to use it, and it's a lot of people in the community would agree with that it's one of the best species in the game. Moving on quite quickly to the next species. This is the 1997 Stegosaurus design. There's 2 Stegosaurus models in the game. This one is the far superior one, and it has some of the best skins in the entire game, in my opinion, that were added, and that's what bumped it up for me from a good species to my number 3 species in the game. This Stegosaurus is absolutely fabulous. It's my favorite herbivore in the game, and I will use it in pretty much all of my parks. Now on the number 4 spot, we have the first pterosaur on this list. This is the 2001 Pteranodon. Much like the 1997 Stegosaurus, it went from a good species to one of the best species in the game when it was added with those new skins, I believe in the same update as the Stegosaurus. These are probably some of the best skins in the entire game. It's absolutely fabulous, such a great pterosaur, and a very iconic model. It carries that older design aesthetic, while still, at first glance, seeming somewhat paleo-accurate. It looks like a real animal, it functions like one, and that pretty much gets it into S tier for me. Moving on to the next species, again, really fast-paced, sorry. This is one a lot of people like that was added in the Feathered Species pack, the Utahraptor. For a lot of people, probably their top theropod in the game. That's absolutely amazing feathers, and it's just really useful in parks. It's a medium-sized theropod. It's quite paleo-accurate, but it also feels like it fits into the game quite well. That's pretty much all I have to say about Utahraptor. It's amazing, deserves S tier. On to the next species. Now, in number 6, we have what was my favorite pterosaur in the game until the Pteranodon 2001 skins were expanded, and we have the Barbaridactylus, which is an amazing species. I think it's such a cool animal and its whole group. A lot of people don't like that they put the skin on this animal. I do think it makes it look more realistic, but I like both looks. And this is just a really useful mid-sized pterosaur that fits like pretty much everywhere and has a great diversity of skins, cool behaviors. I don't really know exactly why I like it so much, but for me this is an amazing species, great addition to the game. Here we have another Jurassic World Evolution 1 species, the Metracanthosaurus. The one take back I will say for the Metracanthosaurus is that it doesn't have its iconic Jurassic World Evolution 1 skin, which isn't from Jurassic World Evolution 1, it's from the Jurassic World 2015 website, which is a great continuity thing. Metracanthosaurus is just a very cool animal. I love mid-sized theropods because I can use them in my parks a lot, and they're cool because they're theropods. And unfortunately, it doesn't exactly have that same skin, but I got the closest I could right here, and it still looks amazing. Great species. Yeah, on to the next. This is a species that a lot of people expected to be in the game at launch. This is the Dunkleosteus, which was added in the Marine Species pack. Absolutely love this animal. Such unique behaviors. It's a fish, which is cool, and it just is really unique in the lagoons. It's also just one of those really useful species. You'll notice I have a lot of those here. That was a high-ranking thing that, to be an S tier, I need to be able to use it a lot in my parks. For a lot of people, this isn't their number one, but I think it's generally liked, and so here it is. Next up, we have yet another theropod. This is the Concavinator from the Cretaceous Predator pack. This is a beautiful animal. It acts very reptilian, which I kind of like. Usually I like my dinosaur to be more bird-like, more unique dinosaur, but in cases like Concavinator, it just works so perfectly. They have sounds that kind of remind me of snakes. They're super cool, and they're just beautiful animals, and this was a highly requested animal in the game, so it was great when it got added. Moving on to the next species. Still in S tier, we have one that I consider to be very underrated. This is the Monolophosaurus, which is added in the Camp Cretaceous dinosaur pack, which was not a loved pack for a few reasons. But a lot of the Camp Cretaceous designs in this game, and even some that are not Camp Cretaceous designs, look very cartoonish. The Monolophosaurus doesn't suffer from this very much. It reminds me of a Monolophosaurus itself. It's very brightly colored, has cool sounds, cool behaviors, very useful in parks, much like the others on this list. Not much more to say about it other than that. I love this species. For a lot of people, it's not this high on their list. But Suchomimus usually is very high on people's lists, and that's because it's an absolutely beautiful animal. Once again, using a Jurassic World 2015 website design. It lost that design in Evolution 2 as its default, but there is still a skin that looks almost identical to it. Absolutely love this creature. It's by far my favorite Spinosaurid in the game. It's much more paleo-accurate than the others, which is a bonus. It's large theropod, but it's not as gigantic as the Indominus or something. I just love this species. I use it all the time, and it's even increased since it was first added to the game. Now, a very unpopular opinion, we have the Spinoraptor. A lot of people do like this hybrid because it feels like a real animal, unlike many of the others. It moves in realistic ways, it has cool sounds. It's just a cool animal. It's a Spinosaurus and a Dromaeosaur. It changes depending on what Dromaeosaur is, depending on what source you get it from. But this is by far the best hybrid design in the game, in my opinion. Absolutely love this creature. A lot of people, a non-real dinosaur can't be an S tier for them, and I understand that. But I just love him. He's a great species. This one is kind of eh for most people. It's very overlooked and I think underrated. It was added in the most recent pack, the Park Manager's Collection, which was basically the favorites pack. And it was very requested because it's a canon species that's not in the game. It's Segisaurus, and I really love him because he's a small carnivore, much like the Coelophysis, which a lot of people's complaints were it's too similar to Coelophysis. I disagree. I think every dinosaur in the game has its own unique identity, except for the 4 that don't deserve it. And yeah, this is just a great animal. It has better skins than any other small dinosaurs, but it's large enough that you can see it. It's not like the Moros where it just blends into the grass, and I don't care that it's bright green, I can't see it. And it's also small enough that I can still put it in a mini exhibit and not feel horrible about it. I could rant for a long time about the species, but we have to move on. So that's Segisaurus. Hailing from the late Cretaceous pack, we have the Alamosaurus, the first sauropod in our ranking. I love sauropods, and this is the best in the game. The most paleo-accurate. I love that it has a thick neck. I love thick neck sauropods. They feel like real animals. And this one also feels like a real animal. I wouldn't call it the better Brachiosaurus because, like I said, I don't like drawing comparisons between species. It's like being similar, but it does give off some similar vibes in it being such a tall animal. Great skins, unlike many of the other sauropods, and this just shows how much Frontier improved their design philosophy from, say, Mamenchisaurus when the first game was launched, or when the second game was launched, even. You'll notice a lot of DLC species are very high on this ranking, and that stays true here with the Thatnos Dragon, again added in the Park Manager's Collection. Absolutely love that pack and this creature. It's an amazing pterosaur. It doesn't beat the other two, but I think it is definitely an S-tier pterosaur. It has amazing skins. It's not as dark-hooded, but it's not as oversized as the Quet, so it can fit in the aviaries and move around. It has cool behaviors. I remember I actually did read about this animal when its study was published in, I believe, 2021. So yeah, I was glad to see it added to the game, and it's quickly rose through my rankings to this spot. When I realized that Ichthyosaurus was going to be in Jurassic World Evolution 2, this and Shastasaurus were two species that immediately jumped to my mind. Shonisaurus is an amazingly cool animal. Giant Ichthyosaurs are just so cool in a way I can't properly describe, the same way that I just love Megaraptors. And it's amazing to see it in the game. It's so colorful. It's our sea blimp. Sometimes the colors get a bit much on a lot of creatures, and I'm like, okay, I see you're going for bright skins, but this is just ridiculous, and it doesn't look real, but this is not the case for the Shonisaurus. It's really just perfectly executed animal. Love this creature. S tier. I think a lot of people would agree that Styracosaurus is very good, but I think it is underrated and wouldn't make most people's S tiers. And I do think it's the best ceratopsian in the game. It is more paleo-accurate than most of them. It does suffer from some Jurassic World design aesthetic issues, but it's relatively small, so I can put it in a lot of habitats. That's a great thing about it. It just has some cool patterns too. It's generally just a really nice ceratopsian, and it stands out from the rest fairly well. I was so excited when Styxosaurus was added in the Late Cretaceous pack. It was the Late Cretaceous pack, right? Yeah. The Styxosaurus was our first bioluminescent aquatic, which is something I and a lot of other people had said that we wanted for a very long time, because especially at this point, the lagoons were very hard to see through, and it was just so cool that it stood out like this. It's got generally cool designs. Sometimes the frills look a little weird, but I overall like them. I think they look cool, and it makes such a unique creature. One of my favorite lagoon species in the game. This is Attenboroughsaurus, named after, is it Richard Attenborough, David Attenborough, or the other Attenborough? I can't remember which one it's named after, but very cool species. At the launch of the game, this was my favorite lagoon species, and it's really just cool. It feels like a real animal. I'm not exactly sure how paleo-accurate it is as far as the osteology and stuff, but it's a cool animal, and it's got vibes. I like it. That's basically all I have to say about it. Usually the pattern version of the creatures is used, but in Herrerasaurus, I usually use the blank pattern because it looks a lot better that way. Herrerasaurus is such a cool animal to me. It's very unique in that it's a dromaeosaur-sized animal as far as like Jurassic Park Dromaeosaurus, but it's also not, and it makes very cool sounds. It's got a very cool skull shape and just really unique behaviors. The species has risen in my rankings quite recently as I've used it quite a bit, from probably low A tier to here. Another addition from the feathered species pack, we now have the Sinosauropteryx. I love this little guy. He is better than the Cospagnathus. He's such a compact little creature because he can stand out with that fluffy raccoon tail. He's got some cool behaviors. I love how weak they are. They can't defeat the goats. And it's just awesome. They're such adorable animals, and I love having them in the game. And yeah, it's just a cool addition. I don't really have anything negative to say about it, which is why it's an S tier. For our first A-tier species, we have the Australovenator added in the Late Cretaceous pack. I love the species. I love Megaraptors, as I said before, so I was very glad when it was added to the game. Another Australian species, great addition. Very cool behavior. It's had really nice animations that have been reused a lot since then, unfortunately, which has made it lose a lot of interest for some people. And the one little downside thing is the face, and that there's cooler Megaraptors they could have added. Overall, it's a great species, though, and I use it quite often. The Jurassic Park Brachiosaurus is so iconic in such an amazing way. Unfortunately, it doesn't have quite the vibe it does in the movie that it does in the game, and it's a thin-necked sauropod. But I could not possibly rank it lower than this. Its sounds are so perfect, and it's just such an amazing creature to always have in your parks. I mean, how could I rank it any lower? It's the Brachiosaurus. Next, we have the Spinosaurus. I really appreciate the improvements that have come to this animal. There was an update that fixed a lot of it and made it feel more like its Jurassic Park 3 rendition, where it feels more like a real animal now instead of a limp-walking model that was very similar to its Evolution 1. It's still not perfect, however, I really love it for its vibes and its sounds, and yeah, it's just an amazing creature. I don't have much to complain about. Obviously, it's not a paleo-accurate Spinosaurus, but I think of it as the Jurassic Park Spinosaurus, so it's great. Next, we have one that's a lot lower for many people. This is the Acrocanthosaurus, which was added in a DLC for Jurassic World Evolution 1. It's not a very paleo-accurate Acrocanthosaurus, but it's a great large theropod to me. And I think it has very good skins, cool behaviors. It feels very much like a real animal. And that's really the only reason, is aside from also it has vibes and it's chunky and it's cool. I don't have much negative to say about it as a creature design for a large carnivore. Archelon in this game was so well executed. Archelon's such a cool animal. It's a gigantic turtle. The reason it's not an S tier is simply because I don't use it all that often, because there's just other lagoon species I use. I think the lagoon rock platforms kind of look ugly because they're so brightly colored. I don't know. I love this species, but it ends up in A tier right here, just because of that one little reason. Otherwise, it would definitely be an S tier. Dilophosaurus is one of the species that was added between the two games and came into Evolution 2 at launch. A lot of people are really excited about the species, myself included, because it's just a really cool, unique animal. I'm glad we have it in the game. I guess it's a little skinny, which is the one reason it's not an S tier. Otherwise, it would be. It's an amazing, amazing creature. I'm going to keep this brief, so on to the next creature. For a lot of people, the Diplodocus would be much lower rated because it seems a little bit like the other Jurassic World Evolution 1 sauropods that were in many ways. However, for me, I just look at this and I see the Walking with Dinosaurs Diplodocus, and Diplodocus is one of, if not my #1 favorite sauropod, just in its own value. And it's an amazing creature. The skins are alright, but to be honest, I really only use this one that I have here on screen. Just love this species. I use it quite often, and yeah, that's really the only reason I don't have much negative to say about it. At the launch of the game, Geosturgmergnia was probably my favorite pterosaur in the game. It has these beautiful, vibrant colors that remind me of tropical birds. It's relatively large. It has cool behaviors, I mean, for a pterosaur in this game. I just don't have anything negative to say about it, really. I like this species, and I use it fairly often. You all knew this one would be here somewhere. This is the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Much improved from its Jurassic World Evolution 1 itself. It feels much more like a real animal now. I really like the movie skins. Obviously, it is a Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is actually one reason I don't use it that often, because I like to use lesser-known species, but it still works its way into many of my parks. It's the T-Rex. It's the Jurassic Park T-Rex. How much more iconic could you get? Of course, the main takeaway is it constantly roaring. Even though it sounds cool. And just an amazing species, not much negative to say. Obviously, it's not a paleo-accurate Rex, but much like the Spinosaurus, it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be, in its own value, the Jurassic Park T-Rex. Yet another somewhat unpopular choice would be putting the Indominus Rex this high up. I couldn't put it above the T-Rex, but I really like the Indominus Rex as a plot device in Jurassic World and how it fits into the overall lore, and it's very cool in this game, much improved from Evolution 1 again. And it has that Lux skin also, which is kind of funny to me because, you know, it's a camouflaging species. But, yeah, it's cool. I just like this animal. If I am to use a hybrid that's not Spinoraptor, it's going to be this one because it feels alive in a way most of the others don't. It looks cool. It's a very detailed model of a creature. Overall, I just like it. I mean, I know it's not a real animal, but I don't really care in this case. Speaking to having very iconic species in A tier, we have the Jurassic Park Velociraptor. I have ranked this separate from the Jurassic World Velociraptor because there's a lot of things that make this much better than the other. However, especially the 1993 Raptors are so iconic and just such cool animals. Obviously, they're not really Velociraptors, but they're amazing. I use them in a large portion of my parks. Now that Utahraptors in the game, I guess, not quite as many, but yeah, I can't say much bad about it the same way I can't say much bad about Spinosaurus. I guess I could say it doesn't feel quite that lifelike, but not in any ways that don't apply to the other creatures. I guess that's just because there's a higher expectation for it to feel lifelike because it has so much time in the movies as Stan Winston models and such. Again, with the film dinosaurs in A tier, here we have the Compies. These are amazing animals in the movies. Their hopping does get kind of weird and annoying at times, which is the one negative, really. They're fairly cool, kind of small and hard to see in habitats, but I still use them a good bit, especially in abandoned builds and such. They just set an atmosphere really well, and yeah, there's just not much bad to say aside from they're hard to work into parks, so that's why it's here in A tier. Maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but here we have the Frontier Giganotosaurus. I like this creature. It's been improved from Evolution 1, aside from that main Evolution 1 default skin no longer being present, which is unfortunate. This image is the closest you can get to what it looked like in that game. However, they fixed a lot of the proportional issues with it. Even though I love the overall design, it did look very strange in Evolution 1. A lot like a Pliosaur in some ways. I like this design overall. There's other large theropods I would use before it, but I mean, I don't have much bad to say about it, so that's why it's here in A tier. We have an underrated species here in Torosaurus, and I think a lot of other people have started to realize that this is one of the best, if not the best, ceratopsian in the game. I always have thought it's much better than the Triceratops. It is a little wonky in a couple ways, but that's probably because it was a wonky animal, and it looks very nice here. Much more alive and like a dinosaur than a lot of others. It's easy to work into parks too, and a lot of the negatives that apply to the Triceratops don't apply to this model. Much like Segisaurus, Dryosaurus is kind of like a mid-tier species for a lot of people. There's nothing bad about it, but they just never use it because they think it's kind of bland. However, Dryosaurus is a great accompaniment species to just about everything in the game aside from like medium theropods. So that's why I love the species, and I've always liked Dryosaurus as a species for some reason, and I love the bright green skin, and once again, there's not negatives to it, and I like it overall, but it's not S tier, so. A whole lot of you are probably really surprised that Deinonychirus didn't show up in my S tier. While I do like it, I think it's a very well-made Deinonychirus, it's just a disgusting animal to me, so I can't really put it that high on my list. It's also gigantic, and if I'm going to use an animal in its size range, I'm probably just going to build for a large theropod. And it does suffer from being overcolored in many ways, and I also personally don't think that Deinonychirus had that disgustingly thick hair, which I think it is a great model, and Frontier did a good job on it. I just don't use it all that often, which is why it's here in A tier. Minmi, or Minmi, I think Minmi, right, was added in the first DLC for Jurassic World Evolution 2, only a month after its release. At first, I thought the species was kinda like just a roster filler, but it's grown on me. I like a lot of its patterns, and the really iridescent scales that it has remind me of snakes, which is kind of strange for such a rotund animal, but I kind of love it, and it has very cool behaviors, great sounds, generally just a really useful animal too. Very unique, and another Australian species, so multiple pluses, which is why it's here in A tier. It also doesn't suffer from many of the issues that plague the other ankylosaurids in this game. You guys are probably pretty surprised to see this creature this high on my list, and I was too, because this is a very inaccurate Dimetrodon. It's not really a great one in the movie, it's kinda I was excited when it was added to the game because it's such a unique creature, but I found that I use this quite often because it's so unique, and I can build fairly small habitats for it because as a cold-blooded animal, I feel like it doesn't need to run around as much. They just feel like a real zoo animal, and even though I don't think it's a great Dimetrodon, I think it's a cool-looking animal. So, and it has decent skins too. I was tempted to put it in B tier, but here it is. Probably another species for most people, because we do have a lot of stegosaurids that are very similar to Wyangosaurus, and also it's maybe a little sour taste in other people's mouths because of what happened with the deluxe pack, and this being in the first game and added in for deluxe creature in this game anyways. But I like Wyangosaurus. I use it quite a bit. I don't know what it is about it. It was very useful in Evolution 1 in building parks, like challenge mode and stuff. And I just really like this creature. It's got some nice skins, cool behaviors. I don't know, yeah, I can't really explain why I like it so much, but here it is in A tier. I love Tylosaurus in this game. It's not really like perfectly accurate, but it's decent, and I like it fairly well. It's got a lot of atmosphere to it. It's a cool, like, sort of monstrous creature, and I'd always use it over the Lioplorodon for that same reason. It doesn't quite make S tier, but I think it's very good, so here it is. Right below Tylosaurus, we have another Mosasaurus, of course. I do think in some ways this is better than the movie rendition, because it's more size accurate, which actually I don't complain about that at all in the movies. It's a fairly good mosasaur. I prefer Tylosaurus because it's original. There's a slight bit of it's more original to use in my parks, and it makes it feel more like my park. The same thing that I've said about the Jurassic Park Visitor Center before. I'm not going to do that right now, though, because this video is already long enough. And we got triple marine reptiles with the Ichthyosaurus, which was added to the Evolution 2 base game. I think Ichthyosaurus is super cool. And for a lot of people, it's just an ant creature. I like it as a lagoon filler, though. It helps ecosystems feel vibrant if you're going to do a multi-species lagoon. Especially when the game first came out, I used Ichthyosaurus quite a lot. I think it's a cool species. In some ways, yeah, it's kind of bland. And we have Shonisaurs now, so if you want an Ichthyosaur, we have a cooler one. But I don't really think there's much negative to say about it. I like it overall, so here it is. Maybe an unpopular opinion due to its inaccuracy. Here we have the Jurassic Park Triceratops, much better than the Jurassic World Triceratops, which I actually forgot to rank separately on here. But they're not really variants. They're not quite that distinct. But here's the Jurassic Park Triceratops, which is super nice. It's much better than the other Ceratops in the game, even though it's not perfectly accurate. It has good vibes, so here it is. This species has gone way up in my rankings since the game first launched. Metaburosaurus was kind of an hadrosaur to me when the game launched, but looking at it now, it moves so much more realistically than the others, like the kangaroo hadrosaurs that we have that barely will walk on 4 limbs. It has nice skins. It feels like a real animal a lot more than the other medium herbivores. I feel like good attention was given to this animal compared to a lot of others, and it doesn't feel cartoonish the way many of them do. Another deluxe species creature, we have the Pachyrhinosaurus with that very vibrant purple on the frill that I really like and probably moves it up several ranks here. I think it's an okay creature. Well, I think it's good, that's why it's an A tier. It is inferior to the other ceratopsians I mentioned, but it doesn't suffer from the ugliness that some of the others do, and it's just generally a good creature. It's not my favorite, but yeah. Now we have the Werehosaurus, also out of the early Cretaceous pack. This is a very good creature. It feels real, distinct from the other Stegosaurs, and generally I just don't have much to complain about for it, so I'm not going to. That's why it's ranked here. Good skins. I mentioned kangaroo hadrosaurs before, but the Parasaurolophus is here. It's here, one, because it's Parasaurolophus. It's from the movies. It's fairly iconic, so I couldn't really put it in super low tier. And it has the good skins. If it were not for those skins, it would be in B tier. So that's the only reason it's here. Generally, I hope it gets improved for Evolution 3, but it's just too iconic to rank low. Our last 2 creatures in A tier are starting with the Homalocephaly. This is a good filler creature. It's large enough that you can kind of see it in the habitats. It is still shorter than the grass, which is annoying, especially when you have to put it behind those 20-foot fences. But anyways, Homalocephaly, we all love it for its sound. It's adorable. And I would put it above Parasaurolophus if Parasaurolophus wasn't so iconic. But I think it's a generally good creature. I don't use it that often in my parks, but there's not really much to complain about for it, so. Here we have the Pachycephalosaurus, not the most accurate design, but it was very cool in the Lost Worlds, and it's better than the other Pachycephalosaurus in the game, because it feels more alive and like a real animal. It was very ugly in Evolution 1, but I think it's been much improved here, especially when it's running. It looks a little awkward sometimes, but it's a good creature overall, so that's the end of A tier. Starting off the tier of kinda creatures, we have the Brachiosaurus variant. I think this would have been ranked at the bottom of this tier before the skin upgrades. I still will always use the other Brachiosaurus over it because I either want a Jurassic Park Brachiosaurus kind of creature, or I want an accurate sauropod. And this is kind of standing in between, so I really wouldn't use it in any scenario unless I was trying to do a Jurassic Park 3 recreation, and then I wouldn't use the new skins. So it's just kind of okay. There's not much to complain about for it for me. But yeah, it just doesn't particularly stand out compared to some of the other sauropods. A lot of people don't like this Dilophosaurus for not being a Dilophosaurus, but it was just cool in Jurassic Park. The stand motion puppet's amazing. It doesn't really act like it in the game, and I think it was quite bad in Camp Cretaceous and Dominion, to be honest. However, it's a decent species. We used it a lot in Evolution 1, so I'm semi-fond of it. That's all I pretty much have to say about it. These are very bland for a lot of people. The Gallimimus is kinda but B tier is the kinda tier, but I don't have much to complain about. It was very cool in Jurassic Park. It's an iconic species. I'd always use the 1993 variant, though I think the Jurassic World one's kinda ugly. But using the 1993 skin, I think it's great to fill large open habitats, so I use it occasionally. A lot of people rank Chondrosaurus, I think that's how you say it, a lot higher. I don't understand why. To me, it's kind of just another theropod, and it's not that distinct to me. A lot of people really like this creature. I don't get the draw to it, but I don't have much to complain about. It's a decent model. It feels fairly alive, not too cartoonified. It's just okay. The Montosaurus is one of the first creatures you unlock in Jurassic World Evolution 1, and it showcased this fabulous skin that was, again, from the Jurassic World 2015 website. I absolutely love the skin. It does suffer from some of the issues that plague all the Hadrosaurs in this game, really. I'm glad it's mostly quadrupedal, but a lot of just the general blanket issues that apply to their Hadrosaurs do bring it down to B tier. Otherwise, it would be in A tier or maybe even S tier. Therizinosaurus has dropped a whole lot in my ranking. When it first released, I was very excited about this creature. I think Therizinosaurus is an awesome animal. I kinda would prefer a chunkier one. Obviously, it's the movie design, so there's not much they could do about it. And if I'm going for like a monstrous creature, there's just other stuff I would use, to be honest. It doesn't fit great into habitat. It is kind of a awkward creature because its shape's so weird. But I don't think it's bad. It's cool in fights and stuff, but it's hard to say with these mechanics in this game. But yeah, it's just okay. A lot of people don't like the Tarbosaurus, or at least didn't, because they're like, hey, it's just a T-Rex with spikes. But as I said before, I think every dinosaur is distinct, and I don't really get the comparison. Like, that's because they were similar animals. There was, in fact, a time where we thought Tarbosaurus probably was T-Rex. Some people even still think that. They're probably wrong, though. And I think it's a cool creature. I don't mind animals having spikes if it's to a purpose and it's in moderation, like it is here. There are superior large theropods in the game, and I don't think it's the most accurate Tarbosaurus, because obviously it's the Capitation model. Some stuff about it looks cartoonish, but I think Frontier did a good job with it. I especially love the skin. Regrettable is a very well-designed animal, but I could not possibly put it higher than here. One, it does suffer from the too vibrant skins, in my opinion. Obviously, this whole thing is my opinion. But I think its number one take-back is that it's just a horrible animal. And that was kind of cool at first, but it just suffers from a lot of the issues with Therizinosaurus. It's like it's not rigged well. It moves so awkwardly. It's hard to put into parks. And, yeah, it just generally, it does the sideways running a lot. So I couldn't put it higher than this, even though I do think it's well designed. People were really excited when the Margosaurus was announced to be in Jurassic World Evolution 2. In fact, it was in the second shot of the trailer, running through that stampede in the deserts, and I think it's just a really cool creature. I used it a lot more early game, and I think we have a lot of better creatures I would use in this place now, but small sauropods are kind of cool, and it's fairly distinct with those neck spines. They did a nice job designing this creature. I just have a lot more creatures that I like more, so here it is. It's decent. The Iguanodon was added via DLC to Jurassic World Evolution 1. I do think this model looks very cartoonified and inflated. However, it has very cool behaviors. It does walk on all four limbs most of the time, and I think it's overall decent because it's cool, and Iguanodon is an awesome animal. I do wish we had a more accurate rendition in the game, and one that didn't look as cartoonified, but overall, it's okay, which is this tier, so. Regrettable was iconic in Jurassic World Evolution 1. I feel like it was kind of the poster child of Evolution 1, aside from the T-Rex, of course, but this is from Jurassic Park 3, and the main takeback for me is that it's extremely oversized in the game. The Ceratosaurus in-game is over 30 feet long, when actual Ceratosaurus would have been like 20, maybe, and yeah, that kind of bothers me. And then there's just not really a reason for it. They could have easily just not done that. However, I think it has decent skin, so overall, okay. Balanced out. Game launch, I really like Troplagnathus, and I think it's a very unique pterosaur in some ways. It's just kind of better than things like Marodactylus. However, it is somewhat bland compared to the other pterosaurs we have at this point, kind of dull, and there's some others with more unique behaviors, so it just, again, balances out to be somewhere in the middle. Similarly, we have Pterodactylus, which is a very cool, like, ominous pterosaur. It appeared in the Jurassic Park novel and was super cool in that. I do think it's more distinct than Troplagnathus. It's just slightly less cool to me, slightly less useful. It's also kind of, I think it's one of the smallest pterosaurs we have in the game, aside from, of course, like Dimetrodon, Tapejara, and stuff, and some Eurypteryx, and the other Dimorphodon variant, and, yeah, cool. Okay, and Jailopters, but anyways, for many people, the Quetzalcoatlus is a very highly ranked species. I think it's dropped for me simply because it's so awkward when it moves around. It can't walk, it doesn't feel alive. The patterns and skins are cool, but a lot of them I don't like that much. And to be honest, now that we have Thatnos Dracon especially, I'd like never use Quetz. And yeah, so that's the pterosaur trio here in B tier. I love the Chunkysaurus. I couldn't put it any higher than this though because it is fairly repetitive compared to the other species we have in the game. And so, yeah, I do like it more than most people though, so here it gets a spot in B tier for decently okay, I guess. Albertosaurus is one of those love it or hate it creatures. To me, it's very cartoonified. And it feels a little bit chunky for an Albertosaurus, but that probably has to do with just my mental image of what an Albertosaurus looks like. I do feel like its tail's really short, and again, it has good skin though, so it's here in B tier. As I'm recording this, Evo just released her all-species ranking, so looks like we got beat to the punch a little bit. Again, Kendrasaurus is a little bit of a boring species, and a lot of people would rank the Camp Cretaceous variant higher, but for some reason I just like this one better. But I can't put it any higher than this because it is semi-bland. The skins are decent enough for me, they're not standout, but not every creature needs to be. Probably a bit controversial putting this one here, but here we have the base game Ouranosaurus, which its other variant is ranked separately. And it is not the most accurate, and it has some of the issues that plague all the Hadrosaurs, which kind of bothers me because I really like Hadrosaurs, and this game doesn't do Hadrosaurs particularly well, with a couple of exceptions, I guess. And, but I do like how smooth the sail is, and it does feel more alive than a lot of other creatures in the game, so that puts it in B. Another animal that a lot of people consider to be kind of but I think is really underrated, and also has good skins and is a good snake, slithery, slimy sea creature. I actually really like it, and I was really glad when this was added to the game. I just like this like black skin with all the different patterns that you put on it, and I don't know, there's something about it that makes it feel alive. I love the scales on the face and stuff. Not much to say about it, but it's good. Nigersaurus is well designed with okay skins, but it's just boring, to be honest. And it's just such a wonky animal. And there's, like, if I was gonna go for a medium sauropod, I'd almost always use Amargasaurus over it. I think I've used this guy once in the sandbox park. But it's not a bad design, so I'm not gonna put it any lower than this, really. Regrettable is really unique, and I remember liking it in the first game. And I do like this base orange colors that you have. It doesn't feel all that alive, and it's far inferior to Pachycephalosaurus. But I like it okay. I mean, that's kind of this tier. You will notice a little bit of inconsistency in this ranking. This is my current ranking, but the difference between species number 50 and species number 51 is like minuscule and can change depending on the day. So just take this as a general idea. If one thing is like slightly lower than the other, it could be slightly higher depending on just however I feel at that time. Jailopterus is just a really unique species. I love that it eats from the insect feeder, which brings it up a good bit, but it is kind of useless in most parks, to be honest. It's kind of like, they're kind of air compies. Yeah, they're compies with wings and feathers. But, yeah, they're overall, I guess, cool. Just kind of, I was excited when they're added because I felt like, oh, maybe they're going to do more small pterosaurs, and then they didn't. And then also the insectivore feeder is not usable by anything else. So it's just kind of in the middle. Nothosaurus is a cool animal, I think, but the design is just not great to me. I think it's a cool lake creature, but we don't have lakes in the game. I think it would fit better in a game like Prehistoric Kingdom or Planet Zoo, where it could run between the water and the land and just have more dynamic behaviors, but I just would use a real lagoon creature all the time before I use this guy. However, it does have decent skin, so it makes it into B tier. Zoopteryx, I have treated kind of harshly in past rankings. This was added in the early Cretaceous pack. To be, not past rankings, I've never done a ranking before, but I've talked about it before. And it's just kind of a boring species, to be honest. Like, there's much better aviary creatures. See, the ones I ranked before this. However, I don't think it's poorly designed, and looking at its skins in the species viewer, it's okay. And I think it's a cool animal, just kind of bland. Coelophysis was added as a new species to Jurassic World Evolution 2 after the first game. When it first launched, I was very excited about the species. Now we have much better animals in its kind of size range, and looking back at it, I don't think it's a great Coelophysis. It's okay as far as paleo accuracy, but I don't know. It, again, just semi-boring, but it's not bad. I don't have much complaints other than I personally just kinda, there's better species. Here we have Struthiomimus, which I was tempted to put a little bit higher because this is the first creature you play with in Jurassic World Evolution 1, so it gets a lot of nostalgia feature for that. Nostalgia points. And that brings it up quite a bit. To be honest, though, Gallimimus is better. The creatures before this just did rank better than it. I do like it overall. And to be honest, if I'm going to use an Ornithomimosaur, I'm probably going to use Gallimimus most of the time. But that doesn't mean I don't like it. I had to look at this guy for a couple seconds to remember what he is. Nodosaurus suffers from many of the Ankylosaur issues in this game. However, I do think it's better than most of the other Ankylosaurs in its size class, the small Ankylosaurs, and it has better skins than the other ones, such as this one that's on screen. I think is decent. I don't particularly like it, but most of the complaints I have are generic for it, so yeah. Oviraptor was added in the second expansion for the game, the Malta expansion, and at the time I thought it was super cool. It has cool patterns. I love the feathered skins. It's semi-ish paleo accurate, I guess, compared to most of the species in the game at least. And it's yeah, I thought it was cool, but it's moved down. It's simply kind of useless in parks. Its behavior is not dynamic at all. It kind of just sits there and doesn't do much, but that doesn't mean I don't like it overall. So yeah, I don't know. It's I'll take it or leave it kind of species. In the Dr. Wu expansion is Allura Titan. Actually, looking at the skins, this is much better than I thought. However, it is a kangaroo hadrosaur, and as I said, I really like hadrosaurs, and they're not treated fairly in this game. So it's kind of bland, but it is better than a lot of the others in its group just for that reason. And also, I remember using it in the first game, which, you know, it's alright. Now in C tier, we have the species that I kind of don't like, starting with the Dominion Allosaurus variant. I could do a full 5-minute rant on why I kind of don't like this guy. It is an Allosaurus, which is what keeps it out of D tier. This design is so inflated in a strange way. It doesn't look like an Allosaurus to me. It's a disrespect to what I think is a cool animal. It looks like it's been stung by bees in the face, and it, especially when you compare it to that other design, this doesn't look like a real animal. It's just gross and disgusting to me. I wish it wasn't in the game, to be honest. This is one of those goofy hybrids that doesn't appeal to me personally, and so that's why it's here in C tier. However, I do think the redesign did a lot of good for it, and so it's not horrible. Can't think of a scenario where I'd ever use it, but yeah, I just don't have as much bad to say about it, really. It's about even between good and bad, I guess, kind of on the negative side, but I don't know. Ankylosaurus. What an animal. In this game, it has really bad skins, and why is it so tall? It's like 10 feet tall. The Jurassic World one in particular is really ugly. That's why I used the Jurassic Park 3 one. I believe in game it is the same model, and they're very similar in the movies. Ankylosaurus is such a cool animal, and I actually don't mind the back armor thick plating because I think that it contributes to the Jurassic Park aesthetic kind of thing, you know. I don't mind that as much. The main thing that bothers me is just how inaccurate it is and everything else, it being so tall and everything. It's just inferior to a lot of the species, as in the ones that I've ranked before this. So, yeah, we're going too long about every species, gotta speed this up. Baryonyx, I thought, had some cool scenes in Fallen Kingdom, and I guess a couple in Camp Cretaceous too. However, it's just really weirdly proportioned. It doesn't feel alive, and it also is cartoonified in a strange way that I think a lot of the species in this game are. Yeah, it's alright, I guess, but just kind of don't like it and would always use, like, Suchomimus, for example, over it. Carcharodontosaurus is such a cool animal and is one of my favorite dinosaurs, which is why it ranks this low for being such an inaccurate Carcharodontosaurus. The accuracy isn't an end-all be-all for my ranking, it's just an influencing factor. But what they gave up accuracy for nothing. Like these really weird spikes that don't look cool, and it has decent sounds, I'll say that. It's a scary creature, but it's just so weird. I don't like it. I don't have much more to say, I just don't like it. I will die on the hill that these things should not have been in Dominion. They should have just used Velociraptors, because Velociraptors can be very cool, as demonstrated repeatedly, but they decided to make this creature off of 3 bones. Literally, if you want to use another Dromaeosaur for some reason, which I don't know why you would, maybe, I guess, to sell more toys, don't do a Triceratops, okay? And also, then I don't know, it was just kind of soured by the movie and some of its appearance in the show. It was cooler in Chaos Theory than it was in Dominion. But the pattern on this thing is ugly, so really I can only use the movie skins, which remind me of the movie, so I never use it. Velociraptor's better. I think I did rank this a little bit higher than the Jurassic World Velociraptor, but I'll get to that later. Unpopular opinion incoming. Here we have the Carnotaurus, which I guess these skins are alright, but it's also a little bit cartoonified to me. I think Carnotaurus is a way overrated animal. Much like the Ceratosaurus, it's super oversized. Like, it's 34 feet long in the movie. What do you mean? Carnotaurus was more like 24 feet long. And it just looks kind of weird. I'm not a huge fan of the creature itself, so I would always use many of the other medium theropods before this guy. I don't hate it. I don't hate any of these species so far. It's just... Megalosaurus would have been higher for me, but it's not very accurate in the game, and also very, very cartoonified. They tried to do the smooth skin thing, but they ended up getting the Albertosaurus effect, and it just looks wonky, and it was a deluxe creature, which I don't think it was worth its price in that pack, so I don't know. I don't, like, actively hate this creature either. It's just overall not good, in my opinion, of course. Probably ranking higher than you expected, we have the Giga variant, which I agree is a bad Giganotosaurus design, soured by the movie, if you can even call it a movie. But yeah, I do think it serves as a monstrous creature in the game, and its skins are decent. Like, I like this green one. I should use the darker green looking at it, but yeah, it's alright in that sense. I don't think about it too hard. I wouldn't use it that often, if ever, but it doesn't actively bother me. Now we have Archaeornithomimus, which actually has some cool colors. It's just beat out by its 2 cousins in this game. And I don't have anything particularly against it. It's just... I forget it exists sometimes in this game. I doubt I've used it before. Maybe once. So it's just, in that way... Can't put it any higher than this. Now we have the C-tier Chasmosaurus, which suffers from the C-tier Ceratopsian syndrome, where it's super inaccurate, but the choices they made for the Ceratopsians just make them look really stupid and really wonky. They don't even look like dinosaurs. In some ways they look like modern mammals. and they're just gross. But, you know, it's not as bad as a lot of the others, which I think bumps it up. So, I mean, it's just not a good Chasmosaurus. I guess it's not horrible. Here we have the Jurassic World Stegosaurus with these really strange proportions. I never understand why Jurassic World made worse models of the creatures that already existed from the 90s. This got bumped down. It probably would have been low B before the 1997 Stego and the 1997 Stego skins. But I would never use this creature anymore. Why would I? It's just not at all a cool Stego. Nor is it a very cool creature when we have an actual Stegosaurus in the game. This is a brown dwarf star of a Stegosaurus. That's all I have to say about it. This sauropod would probably rank higher for many of you. I can't pinpoint exactly why I don't like it. I do think it's weird inclusion in the movie to have Dreadnoughtus, which is honestly not like super well known, because we have like a juvenile skeleton, which I guess is fairly complete, but you know, I wouldn't have picked it over like other sauropods. Like, just put Diplodocus in the movie, and it's also not accurate to what Dreadnoughtus actually looked like. Just look at the prehistoric planet Dreadnoughtus, and I just think it's bland, to be perfectly honest. It is better than its other Dreadnoughtus variants, so in that sense it's positive. Spinosaurus, another small, medium Asian stegosaur. It sure does have giant spines, that's all I have to say. Putting this in C tier is probably going to have Legion getting a pitchfork and torches, but I don't hate the Stegoceratops. It's kind of like a nostalgia feature in a way from like Jurassic World the game and stuff, which it's kind of funny that mobile game has a better Stegoceratops design, and I do think this has gotten worse from Evolution 1 to Evolution 2. Some features on it really annoy me, like the extra horns on like next to its actual horns looks really strange. And I know it's a wonky and strange creature, but I don't care. It's just kind of cool. I don't think I'd particularly use it very often, just because it wouldn't fit really anywhere. But yeah, I don't hate Stegoceratops for being a hybrid of Stegosaurus and Triceratops. That's just kind of neat. Now we have the Iguanodon variant, the 2022 one. I think this creature looks really derpy, but it's better than many of the hadrosaurs in the game because it actually walks on 4 limbs. I don't think it's a very good Iguanodon, but it's kinda okay as a hadrosaur. I think I've used it once. I doubt I'll use it again. We just have better species, to be honest, so here it sits in C tier. Thor's is actually one of my favorite sauropods overall, and especially when you just compare this to the prehistoric kingdom design, it's so wonky. I can't put it any higher than this. I don't have much to say about it. I wish we had another sauropod inside range, or at least just a redesign or variant of it, because it has the potential to be really cool. It's just not. Here we have Corythosaurus, which I thought was really cool in Jurassic Park 3. A lot of people really don't like it for being fairly paleo inaccurate, and I agree. It's not, but I don't mind it. I especially like that 2001 skin, and it is a kangaroo hadrosaur, but I can't put it in D tier. I quite honestly don't dislike it that much. I don't actively hate it. I don't actively like it either, so yeah, Legion's definitely not going to be happy about this one. Scorpius Rex. Generally not liked, however, well, I do agree that it's really weird to have hybrids like this being thrown left and right in the Jurassic franchise. The Scorpius Rex, I don't care that it's ugly. It's meant to be a monster, so if I'm using it as a monster. And I think just on its own in Camp Cretaceous Season 3, as far as plot goes, it was the second best hybrid, aside from the Indominus Rex, of course. That doesn't mean I think it's a aesthetically pleasing design. I think it's a cool monster design, though. The poison quills are cool. A lot of the patterns for this creature are bad, and the movie skins are bland, but I don't mind this one. The only time I'd use this is in like a monster horror scenario, but you know, I don't actively hate it. Again, I don't like it, but so yeah. Here we have the Dimorphodon variant, which I did rank higher than its other one, which I Wasn't sure if I wanted to put it this high because I do think it's a very gross and ugly creature with decent skins, but at least it has something unique, so that saves it from the bad tiers, and I don't feel like yeah, it is not that bad. We have the Jurassic with Velociraptors. I think Velociraptors are a really cool creature. The skins on this guy are kind of bland, I don't really care, but the reason I rank this lower than a Atrociraptor is because a Atrociraptor is a fumble of a new design. They took an amazing design, and it's like they intentionally made it bad, and less like a Velociraptor, which already wasn't a Velociraptor, but it wasn't a Deinonychus anyway. We didn't care, it's basically become its own creature at this point, so they just made it worse, and it has bad skins. I would never really use this guy, I'd always use the Jurassic Park ones pretty much, so. Chronosaurus was the first DLC marine reptile. I love its shark-eating animation. It has good skins. Frontier did a good job at making this creature. But it's a pliosaur, and I have infinite beef with pliosaurs for being the most incorrectly built creatures of all time. Their proportions so strange to me. I don't get why people like them. If you like the species, great. You can use it, it's your parks, but I can't get behind this thing. Yeah, it's just ugly to me. This is a disservice to the creature Liopleurodon, which is an awesome animal as far as pliosaurs go, but again, it's a pliosaur, so it's disgusting, and this is a bad design of it, so it does go lower than Chronosaurus, which is at least a well-designed pliosaur, which isn't saying much, but this guy at least can be used as a monster, I guess, so similar to the Scorpius Rex in that vein, I guess. Here we have the other Kentrosaurus, which is paleo inaccurate. This is another one that I can't pinpoint why I don't like it. I just don't. Yeah, there's no reason for me to use it. I guess I don't actively dislike it. I just don't care about this variant, really. The only upside would be used as an adult for the other Kentrosaurus, but I don't like doing that anyway, usually, so. When aquatics were announced, this was a species people really wanted, is the Elasmosaurus, so I was glad to hear it was being added. It is a little bit of a dragon. Kind of gross in some ways. It gets beat out by a Pliosaurus any day of the week by a landslide. Again, I don't actively dislike it though. A lot of people do, and I understand where they're coming from. Some people also kind of like it, but I don't think it's like... It's kind of in between being like, hey, we're going to have a weird monster scaly sea creature, and we're going to make a good design. And it can't decide, so it's neither very well, and now it's here. It's the Cybertruck of sea creatures. I've seen the Majungasaurus get a lot of love in the community recently. It doesn't really deserve it in my opinion. It's just an ugly animal with bad skins too. This isn't really the fault of the designers too much. I mean, they did add that weird face decoration to it, and I do think the one in Prehistoric Planet is okay. But it is a gross animal to me, so I don't think there's much better they could have done with this creature. To be honest, there's only the Prehistoric Planet design, again, that I've seen that I like better. It's just kind of bad to me, but I don't hate it, so. I remember really liking this guy in Fallen Kingdom. It was really cool when he got all the people in that movie. It doesn't feel very lifelike in that game, though. And to be totally honest, I mean, aside from it not being very paleo accurate, it's just I mean, I don't hate any of these creatures. I overall don't dislike them, and I think this guy's kind of okay. There were a lot more creatures in this tier than I expected, because generally, again, I like the creatures of this game. This is just one of those that kind of just sits here fairly well in the middle. I mean, I guess it could move up depending on the day, or down, like a little bit. Maiasaura was originally ranked much lower for me. However, it's grown on me a little bit recently. I do think it's cartoonified and has a weird face, but it's grown on me. I don't really know why, but again, I kind of don't like it tier. I can hear the mob approaching right now. I don't like the Megalodon. He floats strangely near the surface. I think it's weird that he's in the game. I'm glad the people who asked for him got him. To be perfectly honest, I don't care. I will never use the shark in any of my parks because I don't know, it doesn't feel alive to me. I think it's a good Megalodon design. I'm just not one of those people who particularly cares about Megalodon, and I don't think it's that cool. Again, it suffers from sea blumpness, and I don't know, it just doesn't fit into the game. I don't have much to say about it, it's just kind of don't like it, you know. Lystrosaurus, while being unique, doesn't really stand out from the grass, so that's really the only reason why it's down here. And I wish we had a larger Lystrosaur, because that would be kind of cool. I think they're neat animals, but I can't put it in B tier or anything, so here it is. Lystrosaurus, I guess it's okay-ish, kind of bad. A lot of people really like Tapejara, and I think it's a neat animal and a neat group, but this design in the game I really don't like. It doesn't feel alive, it doesn't feel proportioned like a real living thing, like a real flying thing, definitely. It's got a lot of weird details I don't have time to talk about that I just don't like, and the skins are bad. So, it's one of my least favorite pterosaurs in the game, to be perfectly honest. But slightly worse is Marodactylus, which has nothing unique. There is nothing that would make me add this to my park unless I was doing like a South American pterosaurs habitat, which I actually have done once. But yeah, it's just, why would you use this? It's so bland. I mean, there's not much to dislike about it. That doesn't apply to a lot of the other pterosaurs, but again, just eh. Sitting here in a species viewer, I really like Moros intrepidus. He's got cool skins. He's brightly colored. It's not a very good Moros intrepidus at all. We all know what's wrong with the Moros intrepidus compared to the real animal, but I think he's a nice addition looking at him here until you put him in his park, and then you can't find him because they are so tiny, so quiet, and so useless that at least the compies have like unique behaviors in some ways, and are from the movies, and are even bigger than this guy. I don't like him. Microceratus was much requested, and I'm glad it's in the game now. But to be perfectly honest, this is a bad design. That's not Frontier's fault at all, this is the Dominion design. I do think it has some, well, vibrant skins and some neat behaviors, but I just don't like the design as a Microceratus. It's not accurate, and it's not cool, so. Holocanthus and its group are pretty cool animals. However, this is just really boring in the game. Some weird proportions things that make it look really wonky to me. I don't know much about this animal group, so I don't know if that's an inaccuracy or it's just built weird. So I can't really put it any higher than this. It's just boring, to be perfectly honest. It ranks much higher for a lot of people because they really like how vibrant the skins are, and when it was added to the game especially, it was one of the only creatures that was like that. But now it's just, how do I say this? Really weird. It feels like the skins were made in Google Paint and they just picked a color and dropped it on. It has a really ugly face, and it's soured by what I think is one of the worst scenes in all of Jurassic. It's seen in Dominion, so I can't really say anything positive for this guy, except I guess he has okay skins and some cool behaviors, and he's a feathered dromaeosaur, so it's not the worst dromaeosaur design in the game. This Troodon is not at all a paleo-accurate Troodon, but it's not so wonky that it's cool like the Jurassic Park the game Troodon. This has like literally nothing going for it in my opinion. It's just had kind of bad skins. It was in the Dr. Wu campaign, and it was cool that it had poison then, but it's proportioned so unlike a living thing. It feels almost shrink wrapped, not quite shrink wrapped, but yeah, I can forget it exists at least. The Intelsaurus is another one of those hadrosaurs that doesn't act like a hadrosaur. It acts like a totally different animal that just seems really weird and moves like in some ways it reminds me of the old retro dinosaur designs from like the 60s and stuff. It does have that vibrant crest though, so that gives it some points. Again, I can forget it exists. Now we have D tier for I don't like it. Starting with Dimetrodon for don't like Dimetrodon. To be honest, I was excited when this was added to the game. I think it was cool enough in the movie. It's just a weird animal, and the design's not executed well, but again, it's not a Frontier design. So I'm not faulting Frontier for that. That's a universal thing. Isn't it weird how it's like strangely like wrong to talk about like this is Frontier's fault, but not Universal. They're both companies, but it's like Universal's the bigger company. It's just expectation that it's fine to don't not. Anyway, I'm not gonna go in that right now. Kinda don't like it. Well, no, this is the tier of things I can't forget that I don't like. While the last tier, I kind of didn't like them. At least I can forget they exist. These are constantly in my nightmares. Now, Pseudoceratops is liked by many, but not by me. I think it's a gross animal. It's ugly. It shouldn't. Its act in the movie were just bad. I don't even understand why it was there. A lot of people compare it to modern cattle and like, isn't this so cool? But I think that's a take back from it. To be honest, it's one of the most boring creatures in the game. Some design things about it I don't like. I think it's not that bad as far as accuracy for a Ceratopsian in this game. But yeah, it just doesn't personally appeal to me, and I actively don't like it. Tyrannosaurus has one very cool thing, and that's its name. It's not cute, it's not cool, it doesn't have good skins. This is the best one I could find. And it's also, right, not a real animal. It never lived. It didn't exist. And so, I don't like it. Here we have, the Dreadnoughtus design, which suffers from Jurassic Evolution 1 Frontier design sauropod thingies, where, well, not only are the skins really dull, it's not proportioned like a real animal, and it's like it's supposed to be just like a gigantic scaled thing, but it's not cool at all in the way the Brachiosaurus is. It looks dysfunctional. It doesn't look like a real living thing at all, and it just has no identity to it that would ever make me use it in a park, even above its variant, which isn't a good Dreadnoughtus, but at least has some good skins. Another sauropod, this one is Universal's fault for making a really ugly Apatosaurus. This looks like it's straight out of the 1960s, this Apatosaurus. It's incredibly ugly. I think the animatronic that they used in the movie looked alright, like the head was kind of cool, but it's so weird in this game and bad, and it looks like an elephant. It has elephant skin, and it's just drooping to the ground, and it's just disgusting. D tier for disgusting. Many people do like the Proceratosaurus, and it is a film canon dinosaur, but to me, while I do think it's been much improved from its Evolution 1 self, it's still really ugly and feels shrink-wrapped to me. It doesn't have anything unique in addition. Well, I mean, I guess it has that crest, but, you know, scale-wise and stuff, it just doesn't have a place in my parks. I don't like it for being so shrink-wrapped, and I don't understand the draw to it that much. This animal looks really dumb. It's shaped like a football, as the Skeleton Crew once said. It's some people like it. I do think it's in some ways a more accurate Ankylosaurus, but in other ways it's too ugly for me to ever use it. I didn't even realize how much I disliked it until I was doing this ranking. It's just bad. I don't think I've ever used it in any mode in Evolution 2. I don't even know if I've hatched one. I've only looked in the species viewer, I think. Now we have arrived at our final sauropod. This is the Mamenchisaurus, which is an awesome creature. It was really cool in the Lost World. Jurassic Park had a cool 90s dinosaur design aesthetic, despite being not that accurate. It's so skinny in this game, though, and it looks disproportionate. Its neck is way too long. Look at this next to the actual skeleton of the animal, and the differences are really obvious. I just don't like this animal, and I think that it should be entirely replaced for Evolution 3, because it has the potential to be really cool. They should at least add a 1997 variant. That's pretty much all I have to say about this. I wish it was good. I mean, I wish all of these were good, but unfortunately, a lot of them are not. Now we have the Sky Gremlins, the Jurassic World Pteranodons, are really bad. You'll remember, Pteranodon was really high on this list, I think like number 5 or something. I've lost track of what number we're on, but yeah, it's just, I do like this skin. To be fair, I'd never seen this skin before, and I think it would have been at the bottom of this tier if it weren't for that. It's so ugly, it doesn't at all resemble the real animal. It doesn't at all resemble a living thing. It's shrink-wrapped, it checks all the boxes for a bad design, so, sorry. Again, checking those boxes, we have the Tyrannosaurus, shaped really cartoonishly, but also not like a real thing. It displayed some okay behavior in Camp Cretaceous, but also it was like a little forced, and it was really strange, and we just have that much better Tyrannosaurus. And I don't think it has particularly good skins either. I just never used this. I think I probably hatched one when it was added to the game, but that's probably the only time, to be perfectly honest. I just don't like this creature. That's all I have to say about it. What is there to say about Pentaceratops? What a disgusting creature, not only in real life, but in the game. It's somehow been made even worse. It's kind of the opposite of Chronosaurus, where you took an ugly animal and made it as good as possible. You took an ugly animal and made it even worse. It's so disproportionate in such a weird way, and I don't like it. I don't like looking at it. To get it off my screen, I'm ending this recording a bit of it for now. Yeah, words. The final detail. I didn't realize how much I disliked this creature design until I started recording this video. The Sauropelta, I think, is a very cool animal in real life, but especially the head on this thing. Just look at it. I don't like it. Please make it go away. I remember I actually didn't dislike it that much in the past. I think I would have put it like high C before, but yeah, it's just bad. And I don't want to dislike it, but I do. It may surprise some of you to see it this low in the F tier 4. The 4 that deserve to be burned in fire. The ones that I like to dislike. The ones that I really just don't like these designs to a supreme degree. The Indoraptor is one of those 4 that I would eliminate from the game. And it is so bad, I don't even think it's a cool monster because it was so bad in the movie, and it just has a bad reputation for setting up all that. The one positive that keeps it from being like at the bottom of this tier is its skins. At least has a couple skins that are okay, but like, wow, this is ugly, and I don't even think I'd ever have a use for it. Like, even if I was making a monstrous hybrid research facility, I would not use this, even in that, because the Scorpius Rex doesn't deserve to have to look at this thing's face. Now we have our final hybrid on the ranking, the Spinoceratops. I'm not going to do my full Spinoceratops rant here because the video is already like an hour and 12 minutes long as I'm recording this. Probably even longer once I have my outro and stuff. But, it's so bad. The Lux skins don't do it any favors. It does have okay skins, but I don't care because it's like, what's the saying? Putting makeup on a frog? What is it? Something like that. It's disgusting, and it did so much bad for the franchise, and it's just such a wasteful hybrid. Like, you could have put anything in that DLC slot, and you chose this disgusting, horrible thing, combining a good design with a horrible one, and you got something somehow slightly better than the horrible one. But it's just, yeah, that's all I have to say. I'm sorry, Frontier designers, if you're watching this. You did the best you could, but there was no saving something like this. In my opinion, the second worst design in the game is the Sinoceratops first appearing in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. It does not even resemble a real, whatever the animal's called, Sinoceratops. It does not even resemble a real Sinoceratops. It doesn't have anything cool. It doesn't have anything cute. It doesn't have any cool animations or features. It doesn't make any cool sounds. Every Ceratopsian in the game is bad. It has suffered from all the Ceratopsian issues, checked all the boxes of bad design, and it's just really bad. I just dislike this animal. It doesn't do anything cool, and it's in the closing shot of Dominion, which I didn't even realize until the Skeleton Crew said it, and now I can't forget it, that's the last creature in timeline and order on screen that we see after the Brachiosaurus could have been it, and this is just disgusting. Horrible, poorly researched design. It is not a Frontier design, it's a Universal design. And they like mix different, I'm just done talking about it. I'm not gonna do the full rant. Finally, we have the worst design in the game, and I can stop talking about these ugly, disgusting creatures. We have the Deinonychus, if I can even call it that. It's not even unique, cool, or monstrous. It's not at all a Deinonychus. It's a spit in the face in paleontology is what it is, because it's supposed to be Deinonychus, such an important animal, and they made it so bad. And it's not even a Deinonychus. Like, what is this thing that's on my screen? It deserves to live in just a pit of concrete with fire and spike traps for the rest of time, in a pit of shame, where people throw tomatoes at it, but they can never eat them because it just poisons them. Yeah, I'm not gonna do the full rant on this. This is just a disgusting. I was gonna call it an animal, but it's not. It's just a thing. I'm gonna try to forget this exists for the rest of the time, but I probably won't succeed. If you're still here, you're awesome. Thank you for sitting through that very long all species ranking. Tell me what you think. I really didn't like talking so negative about all those designs, because I do like the creatures overall in this game, and I think it does have a lot of room for improvement, though. So, yeah, this was really a requested video. To be honest, it was really hard to make, but I did enjoy talking about it, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd let me know what you thought, and, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say in this outro, to be honest. I'm really bad at outros, aren't I? So I'm just gonna end it right here and not have a proper closing.